This video is about solving two-step equations. Remember, when you solve a two-step equation, we need to add or subtract to move our constant over first. Then we need to multiply or divide the coefficient over. Remember, the coefficient is the number in front of your variable. And then finally, we're going to graph the solution set. So the thing to remember, though, is that when you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to flip the inequality sign. So let's work on solving some of these. In number 1, we have 2x plus 6 is less than 2. So first we need to move our constant over, so we're going to move this 6. Because it was added, the inverse is to subtract 6 from both sides. So we get 2x is less than negative 4. Then to get x by itself, we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. So x is less than negative 2. X is on the left side of the equation, so I can go ahead and graph right now. So I'm just going to write negative 2 somewhere on my number line. Above 2, because there's no bar by my inequality, it's going to be an open circle. And my inequality is pointing to the left for less than, so I'm going to shade in the direction to the left. Number 2, negative 4 is less than or equal to negative 3x plus 5. So my first step to get x by itself is I need to move the 5 away. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Negative 9 is less than or equal to negative 3x. Next, to get x by itself, we're going to divide by negative 3. Notice that I'm dividing by a negative. When you divide by a negative, remember, you must flip your inequality sign. So we now have 3 is greater than or equal to x. So see how my inequality flipped from pointing to the left to pointing to the right? Now, in order to graph this, your variable has to be first, which in this case it's not. So I'm going to flip this entire inequality. So x and 3 switch spots, and my inequality switches directions again. So it was pointing right, so now it goes back to pointing left. So on my number line, I should have 3 with a closed dot above the 3. And then I should be shading to the left because it's a less than sign. Number 3, 1/3 x plus 3 is less than or equal to 2. So my first step here is to subtract 3 from both sides. 1/3 x is less than or equal to negative 1. Now there's a fraction in front of x. In order to get rid of a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by 3 over 1 on both sides. So I get x is less than or equal to negative 3. So on my number line, I have negative 3. Because of the bar underneath it, that means it's a closed dot on my number line. And I am shading to the left because it's pointing left for my arrow. Number 4, negative 5 is greater than or equal to 4x plus 3. So my first step is to subtract 3 from both sides. Negative 8 is greater than or equal to 4x. Then, in order to get x by itself, since it's 4x, that means it's multiplied. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide by 4 on both sides. Negative 2 is greater than or equal to x. Now, I can't graph this yet because x is on the wrong side, so I need to switch everything. So now x is less than or equal to negative 2. So I have negative 2 with a closed circle, and I shade to the left. Number 5, negative x minus 7 is greater than negative 8. So the first step here is to add 7 to both sides. Negative x is greater than negative 1. Now remember, having a negative sign there is like having a negative 1. So we are going to divide by negative 1 on both sides. Notice that again, you divided by a negative, so you must flip your inequality sign. So x is less than 1. So at 1, I'm going to put my number on my number line. Above 1 gets an open circle, and again I shade to the left because it's a less than sign. Number 6, x over negative 2 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 1. So my first step is to subtract 3 from both sides. X over negative 2 is greater than or equal to negative 2. To get x by itself, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2. Notice again, I multiplied by a negative number. When you multiply by a negative number, you must flip your inequality sign. So I'm going to flip it the other direction. So now x is less than or equal to 4. So at 4, there should be a closed circle, and I should be shading to the left.